So welcome to the session today. We're here to talk about changing productivity platforms. We know it's a hard transition that we see a lot of companies making. And we're here to bring a lot of customers who have been, these three customers have been with us for a while, who have gone through that change and actually come out the other side in a great way, and want all of you to hear from their experiences and learn from the change management that they've done moving to G Suite over the last many years. So I'm Lauren Miskelly. I lead our strategic account management team, looking after all of our Americas customers who are using G Suite as a platform, and work with customers every day who leverage G Suite and the benefits from that in their companies. And I want to introduce my panelists who I have here today. So sitting next to me is Bhupesh Arora. He has a long title that we discussed before. We're going to shorten to simplify for me, but he's...
it's a good one.
Yes, the long one's good. A lot of thought has gone into the words of the long title. But Senior Director of Digital Innovation at Avery Dennison. And I will maybe let you quickly introduce yourself and how long you've been at Avery Dennison.
Yeah, so this is Bhupesh Arora. I've been at Avery Dennison for 9 years, leading enterprise architecture, applications, and digital innovation, which is pretty new. And predominantly been in manufacturing industries, 9 years, and a lot of roles since 9 years. So it's been a great journey with and partnering with Google as well on that.
And what does Avery Dennison do?
Yeah, so Avery Dennison, we make things stick. So we invented the adhesive label, right? So you all recognize us. If you walk in the supermarket, we have our products out there. Every product has a label, whether it's a beer bottle, or it's a ketchup, or a frozen food. We put it out there. We keep you safe. So if you're driving and you see a stop sign, stop. We put that stop sign there. You're on the highway, the way to go, we guide you there. So we put all kinds of signs. We also technologically advanced, where we put RFID, or the radio frequency identification device, which is a new label. It's the intelligent label for us. We in medical. We are a company of companies. We in apparel. So the apparel you wear has a label which says where it's made, how do you wash it. So we guide you. So we always guiding people to the right place. And we've been there for 80 years plus. We've been around for a long time, 6 billion plus, 26,000 plus employees, 50 plus countries, and we are everywhere you look.
Great, thank you. And next I'm excited to introduce Mike Heim, who is the Vice President and Global CIO for Whirlpool. And so Mike, you want to give a bit background of yourself and what Whirlpool does, if anyone is unsure of what your company does?
Yeah. The Whirlpool, depending on how you measure, largest appliance manufacturer in the world. We're in most U.S. households at some level, presence in laundry and also in the kitchen. Our big brands you would know would be JennAir, KitchenAid, Maytag, and Whirlpool, of course. And we have a very large presence in Latin America, too, and have brands down there, Console and Brastemp, that are really good sellers for us there. The Whirlpool, about 21 billion. We deployed Google starting in 2014, so we've been on the platform for quite some time and have enjoyed it. It's been a really good change for us. I've been at Whirlpool a little bit over 6 years. I probably left that part out. I promised my wife 3 to 5. She may not be my wife when I get back, but it's a test. But I'm on my 6th. It's been really a great ride.
Thanks, Mike. And lastly, we have Manish Patel, who is the CIO for Sanmina Corporation, and I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Lauren. So I've been with Sanmina 21 years, and Sanmina is a manufacturing company. We're headquartered in San Jose, California, $6.5 billion in revenue last year. Hopefully we'll get to $7 billion this year. 45,000 employees worldwide, 60-odd manufacturing plants around the world. And we do contract manufacturing, so we manufacture for all of the name brand OEMs that you probably have heard of in the electronic space. We focus on mission critical products, medical devices, defense aerospace, cloud computing, and we're getting into industrial and oil and gas as well.
Great, thanks. So I kicked off by saying we're going to talk about how these companies have made their transition to G Suite. But first I wanted to start with the beginning of the journey and why the decision was made to move to G Suite in the first place. So that question to each of you, and I'd love to hear that decision-making process and why you ultimately decided to move your users to G Suite.
Sure, you guys okay? I'll go. The
guy with the mic goes first.
I have the mic. We got fortunate, I think, at Whirlpool. When we began to look at our collaboration suite, we were also doing some new facility development and launching a couple of new office buildings, and how we're trying to make them much more collaborative, go into an open concept, and fundamentally trying to change the way we work. So. For us, we partnered very closely with HR and very closely with facilities so that we tried to get our three-legged stool was how do we build the right culture, how do we have the right facilities, and then how do we have the right tools to support that. So we didn't pitch it as it's a Google implementation. We pitched ours as the winning workplace, and we're developing the winning workplace. And that began a whole series of change for us that really helped us transform how we do operate and how we work across the enterprise. So
we've been with Google 5 years. We went live 2013, and the reason we went with Google was interesting. It was definitely our employees were not too happy with the tools we had. We had a mix of a tool called Lotus Notes and some prehistoric intranet and also some social tools. We did have that. But it was getting really difficult, and our CEO at that time wanted us to be more connected, right, and be collaborative. For us, we wanted to, from an IT standpoint, we wanted them to have tools that are easy to use. I wouldn't say we would right on the mark, like Mike said, we wanted to have an open and collaborative space. That came later, but I think it was driven more by the frustration of the tools. And the timing was good because cloud was just getting there in 2012. I think people were still scared to go on the cloud. And we did a very intensive evaluation, and I will recommend for others too to look at that. And we did 3 months. We looked at Google and other tools, and essentially, Google came out on the top, just not because of the ease of use, but it was overwhelmingly the choice by hundreds of people that were there that used the tool. So I think the answer came as a default almost, which is very interesting when we put the tools out there. And there was big cost savings. So when we looked at Google, we were thinking only email. Let's look at email in the cloud, but the answer became clear as we went through the process that we can not only sunset the intranet but also the social, but just combine everything, kill multiple birds with one stone, and bring it together in an easy to use experience for us. And it saved us $5 million a year. So we've been reaping the benefit for the last 5 years. So it couldn't be a better story. And we've connected the employees in a very easy to use tool across the world, anytime, anywhere, any place kind of a setup. So it was kind of a no-brainer when we went to Google at that time.
That's great to hear. Let's hear Manesh's story as well.
So we moved to Google. We moved the whole company in December of 2009. So we're coming up to 10 years here. So we were one of the early adopters. Back then, we moved 17,000 employees, which was roughly half our workforce who used Gmail onto G Suite, or Google Apps as it was called, I think, back then.
Google Apps.
It's gone through 3 or 4 name
Google
changes.
Apps for Work at one point.
Yeah. So since we were an early adopter, we had spent the previous 18 months doing a lot of due diligence, doing a lot of proof of concept projects to validate not only Google's solution, but also our internal processes for transitioning. We worked closely with Google on addressing some of the gaps back then. It's all out of the box now, but making calendars work across Exchange and Google, and making sure all the calendar information came across. So there was a lot of issues we worked through. And then internally, we went through a lot of challenges, just realigning our teams, doing training and so on. And so we did a fantastic job on due diligence and preparation, so that big cutover in December of 2009 was actually a huge success. So I've done a lot of large conversions, and this was one of the smoothest ones we've done. Why we went? So there were really three reasons. The initial was financial. We did the math and we looked at total cost of ownership. Our previous system, which was Exchange, wasn't broken, it was working. So we're always constantly looking to improve, and when we came across Google, spent some time looking at it, and we really found out that TCO was going to save us about $2 million a year. And we realized that after we went live, we actually did see that sort of savings. So that was the initial starting point, but obviously a decision like that needs to be reviewed and approved at the board level and the executive level. And there were two other reasons that I gave our executive team and our board that I felt were more important than the cost of ownership. One was it was really going to allow our employees to collaborate and work together without a lot of IT intervention. And most of you who've been on the older environments remember cleaning out your email box because you ran out of space and all that. Our employees don't think about that today. So that's just one example. But you know, we have teams working around the world, and being able to work across time zones effectively and productively was important. The third reason, which I thought was the most important one, was we could see with Google that it was going to put us on a different trajectory in terms of collaboration and technology, and we've realized that. So now when we look at, in the last few years, Drive and Hangouts and all of the things that Google has developed, we've absolutely seen that.
Great, thank you. And you each spoke to it being a smooth transition, and I want to dive a little bit more into that. So I guess, Mike, how about when you thought about making the change, how did you announce it to your employees, the winning workplace? I know you put a framework around that. What was the change management framework, and how did you make that successful?
Yeah, in our case, we really started the change before we picked the tool, to tell you the truth. We had a number, we knew we wanted to do some work in this space. We were on a notes platform at the time as well. And we did a series of tech fairs where we invited really everybody who had an opinion, from admins.
There weren't very many people.
Everybody did, trust me. The only people, and we invited everybody to participate in that. And then we had Microsoft in, we had Google in, and we had IBM in. And in fairness to them, we were on a very old, outdated version of their platform. So in that process, we gathered a lot of feedback. We did essentially an exit poll around what people might prefer for that choice. And I'll never forget it, because we had tried a couple times before I joined to actually upgrade our collaboration platform, and had trouble getting funding for it. And we got everybody involved, and I remember my team saying, Mike, you're crazy to do these tech fairs. And I said, why? And they said, well, you'll build expectations that we're going to do something. I said, okay. And then, on top of that, if you ask them for their opinion, they're going to think they have a choice about what we select. And I go, they use it, shouldn't they? And then when it came time to approve it, you know, the answer to the other one was, hey, once we get 35,000 people excited about moving to a collaboration platform, I defy the executive committee not to approve it, right? Let's see what happens. And so that really began that change process for us. And we put a steering committee in place around all that. We had key leaders, much of what you would expect around helping with that change. But we really began the process by engaging them in thinking about what that platform would be and how that would operate. Again, back to HR, if you know, working from anywhere, anytime is great, but it's only good if your boss doesn't say, hey, I didn't see you in the office on Friday, right? So we wanted to get the right culture, the right policies and practices, and again, the right facilities to make that work. And we just tried to bring all those things together and drive the right kind of engagement for that.
That's great. So it sounds like you got buy-in early from the people on the ground, which had a big impact.
Yeah, we did. And we also, I mean, we bundled it together with a Bring Your Own program, and so we got everybody connected. And I have to say, our team will say it began. It sent a significant signal about where we were going to take IT at Whirlpool, and we needed to. We really were not the organization we needed to be, and this really began to put us on that path. We've got a cloud-first strategy, and when we chose Google, people woke up and it was like, wow, you guys are really going to do this. And again, it's been a great thing for us.
That's great. So Bhupesh, I'm sure you had some people bring concerns or challenges along the way when you were going through the change management. What were some of those, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think a little bit about change. Change comes from the top. Change comes from evangelists, and change is constant, right? That's the way we look at it with the ongoing innovations. It's not just a one-time implementation, but it's constant communication and change management to make sure we are getting constant value from the investment we make and the innovations that Google does. So that's at least how we think about it. We invest in that pretty heavily, and that's ongoing. We partner very closely with the communications team. They've done some funny, very engaging videos, and we got a great team that really sends the message out. So that's about change being constant. We go back to your question on what was the concerns on change in the beginning, and I think it's about selling the vision, right? Yes, cost savings, but there was concerns about going to the cloud, security, and I think we did pretty good due diligence, and Google just passed the test, performance, and on all those concerns. But the other part of change is the people, right, that we were talking about earlier. And that's around creating that change from the top and setting that vision, and leaders being the role model from our CIO to our CEO. So when we pitched the business case along, me and the CIO, we talked about they being the role model and they driving it. And one of the conditions was, it's almost like a stage gate. We will put you first on, and if you don't like it, we can stop. And it was very interesting because we got some business leaders and our CEO, and they said, "Oh wow, that was pretty simple. Can we just roll it out faster?" So that was a good thing. And you want to team up with leaders who are proponents, because there were some business division leaders that were not, and you want them to go later, because that's exactly what happened. We went with a business division that was a big proponent, and the other one, when they were successfully rolled out, they said, "Can we get it tomorrow?" So it's a night and day shift out there. So I think you got to prove yourself, get it out. And the other part is what I call the evangelist or Google guru. So we built, we went out and asked for how many people want to be part of this Google migration, and 1,000 people signed up. It was amazing. And they helped us to be the guru, the evangelist, and I think we continually evolve that evangelist. As I said, change is constant. We keep that going, and we're shifting our thinking on what these evangelists
do. Those evangelists still exist in your organization?
They are, well, so they do, but the people and the role is shifting because the focus is also shifting on that.
Great. So, Manish, as you think about the migration and the rollout, what have you seen as actual change in the way people are working and the culture within Sanmina?
Okay, I was actually going to answer their question first.
You can answer that first, too. He has something to say on that, too. Yes, please.
So I got to say, you guys probably had it easy, because when we moved, there were no partners. They didn't exist. So
we didn't have the guru structure planned out.
No, we had to figure it out all ourselves. So we actually moved all of IT first, and we said, look, everybody in IT is going to be a support person and be an evangelist and so on. And then we did a series of pilots and proof of concepts to validate a whole set of things. And we focused on, so we're a manufacturing company, so we have manufacturing plants around the world. We picked a couple of manufacturing plants that were friendly and open to moving and taking on new technology. And when we had proved out that we could do it there, then we pulled the trigger on the big bang conversion. And so that worked very well. We spent a lot of time on training. One of the lessons learned was we did not make training mandatory. And the thought process from a lot of employees was, hey, this is a browser-based thing. I use this at home. How difficult can it be? And it turns out there's a lot of bells and whistles you do need to turn on to make it very productive, or make it productive for employees. And so we should have made it mandatory. especially for sales, because they tend to be noisy. And one of the things that we did do right was we left our executives to the end, and especially their admins to the end. So when everybody was converted, we went back and took them out one at a time, and that was a good strategy.
That's a very intentional words right there.
Yeah, that was a good strategy. Sorry, I'll go back to your
Yeah, back to the other question. Just so once you got everyone on the platform, what did you notice as far as cultural change or just day-to-day how people were working?
So initially, we just focused on messaging, and this was the early days of Google Apps. So we looked at email, calendar, and contacts. We spent a lot of time training and supporting those changes. Everybody had access to all the other applications, and what we found was there's always people in an organization that are always looking to do new things, and they naturally started to move to the applications. Then you get the followers, and some of the people followed, and then you get the resistors and the people who didn't want to move at all to get off their legacy Office applications. So we saw that, and we've been promoting and really trying to get our employees to voluntarily move to use all of the apps. And a couple of years ago, we started working with Google and Maven Wave on the Next Mile initiative, and now we're pushing. So we're 18 months into that cycle where we're transitioning more and more of our employees to the full set of G Suite apps and end-of-lifing some of the legacy apps.
That's great. So I guess actually, Bhupesh, have you noticed anything from a cultural change perspective? I think you guys, being an 80-year-old company.
Yeah, I think people have latched onto it, including the top leaders and everyone in the company. They've seen the value. I think we haven't done a work study. If we do a work study, we can really prove how productive and collaborative we've been. People see the huge value of real-time collaboration. There's a shift also in how we are constructing offices, just being that open space culture. Like our CEO doesn't have an office, kind of like maybe like Google, maybe not, but it's very open space oriented. Our new office, our headquarters was built that way. It was built for you to forget your computer at home if you want to, but can utilize a screen in a huddle room. So, the easy access to information, the concept of having your information on the cloud and the freedom to connect anytime, anywhere is huge. And it also has led to, I would say, flexible work arrangement type of policies. So, it's kind of set up a role model on how we will blend digital workplace technologies with building our new office real estate in companies. So we become very much a virtual organization. It's, people, you find people on Hangouts that are in T-shirts and really casual, which was not the case before. So I think it's a big shift. It's acceptable to do that, and I think we should do a study on the retention. Probably retention has gone up too. So I think just from that, even bringing in millennials, like when we say we got Google, they're like, wow, we're coming with a more modern company. I can't believe we're 80 years old. So it's a big shift from that standpoint. So yeah, it's those are the things that we've seen changing culturally. Yeah.
That's great. And Mike, you and I were discussing this right before with a panel and talking about business metrics and how you look at what metrics have changed since you moved over to G Suite. And I think you had a very powerful one around employee engagement that I'd love you to speak to.
Yeah, probably, all these things, it's difficult to know what are the right metrics that you want to measure and how do you want to look at those, and you get asked that all the time. But probably the best one that we have is every year we measure employee engagement across our whole population of knowledge workers. And every year there's one question on there that basically says, I have the tools and the technology I need to do my job. It was our lowest scoring question for years in the survey. And
some nodding heads out there. The others might have that as well.
When we went live with the Winning Workplace, we got a huge lift in that. It's now one of our highest scoring questions, and we've hung on to that year over year. So to me, that's a huge one. The best personal metric I have is I never get attachments in my email anymore, and I love that. and I never have to worry what version of a presentation I'm about to give. Has it all been updated? And I'm sure we all have been in that situation where you're making a presentation and you go, oh, you know, I made a change to that slide, but it didn't actually make it to the deck. You don't have that anymore when you're done working on a deck, which you can. I do that globally. My team sits every place. When you're done with the deck, you're just done with the deck. So it's just a whole different way of working and engaging. And you know, my team initially, I'd get in and look at stuff that was a work in process, and it was like, Mike, why are you asking me questions? We're not ready. That deck's not ready for you yet. And it's like, well, no, I actually think it is, but it speeds everything up, and you can, as a team, get much better alignment and contribute in a meaningful way. It's just, it really flattens the organization, and it's just very engaging. So for us, this whole score around employee engagement was just huge, and I have to tell you, you're always trying to justify these. Our executive committee saw that and was like, wow, that's pretty much due to one thing, right? And so the whole winning workplace really helped us with that.
That's a great story. Do either of you have similar business metrics or ways that you track the impact? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, it's actually, we'll take some ideas from Mike, but metrics are really hard, and when you're trying to, one of the things we've seen recently as we've started to roll out Hangouts is we get a lot of metrics from Google in terms of just utilization, and that's going up at a pretty rapid pace. And we've focused on video in the last 6 months or so, and we're rolling it out worldwide. And our CEO is a big fan of that, so he's out there doing videos. And so we're really going, and what we're seeing is the initial focus was reducing travel costs, but what we're seeing is it really brings people who don't get to meet normally, be in a meeting, get to see each other and collaborate, and I think it really builds those relationships.
So my communication person is sitting there. I know we do a survey every year, and we do ask people, do you feel more collaborative and productive with Google Docs? And the answer is overwhelmingly more than 50%, which is nodding, that we do get a positive answer, that it does make us more productive, collaborative. So we do have metrics.
That's great. That's great. There's the three of these gentlemen are up here for a reason, as they have something in common. And they've all taken part in a program that we've had over the last 18 months or so. Manish spoke to it, which is called the Next Mile. So we actually have 8 customers globally who have been part of a very small group that are working really closely with our product team, our G Suite docs and editors team, that is focused on taking our tools and working really closely with our customers to understand what more is needed from a feature standpoint to make sure that we are enterprise ready and giving you all of the features and functionality you need to continue to have this amazing results within your company, and figure out how you can continue to expand the usage of the productivity platform within each of your organizations. And it's been a really tight collaboration between our teams. And I'd love to hear from each of you a bit about what it's been like to be part of that program, and the benefits that you've seen, and also the changes you've seen in the product since that engagement.
The next mile, firstly I'll say we're in the last mile of next mile, I feel, of next miles, if that was probably more appropriate. So that the Next Mile program is the reason we invested in Google. We saw the value of Google just beyond doing G Suite, and we know we could keep on extracting value, whether it's in Chromebooks, with the pilot we've done, or the usage of Office, which is a lot. It's the focus on Next Mile, and we started Next Mile early last year, and it was about, we got Office investment, and do we really want to upgrade? And there's no reason to upgrade. And it was a good time to take a checkpoint. Why would you spend millions of dollars on an Office upgrade where Google is mature to a point where you can use it, right? So that's why we signed up. And we had a pretty methodical way of going about it. We surveyed employees, and we asked them, how much are you dependent on Office? And it was interesting, half the people said we're not. So, that's what we took care of, the low-hanging fruit, or people who are already passionate and evangelist on usage of docs, sheets, and slides, because they see the beauty, like Mike talked about, easy to collaborate. Half the people say, oh, I don't need it. So we started removing Office, and a lot of cost avoidance, which is an additional benefit beyond the initial investment or the benefit we got. This year, we focused a lot on what we can do on the harder part, right? Especially around Excel, which is macros and connected with systems like Oracle, ERP, and extract from Excel. So we're going over the harder ones, and Excel, the usage, because almost like an application is the part we're chipping away at, right? I think the Word and PowerPoint is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, the capabilities already exist. The people just need to. It's interesting. People say no, it doesn't have the capabilities. When you show it to them, I say, oh, I didn't know, and they convert. It's like, oh, I did not know. So a lot of it is about just showing it to them and getting those evangelists out. So we've been really. That's why I said the shift of evangelists has been, how can you help us get to this? The new age of just using Google Doc sheets and slides and making work even more productive. That's where we are. We're on the second year of the journey, and we're not buying MS Office licenses at all where we can use Doc sheets and slides.
That's great. Mike, how about for you? What does that partnership look like?
Yeah, I think really good for us. I didn't comment earlier, but when we did initial rollout, we commissioned a bunch of Google Guides and had them everywhere in the organization, led by a small core group. And we've largely kept the core group in place. And at one point in time, we retired the guides, and by popular demand, the guides wanted to come back. So as we started Next Mile, it gave us we really wanted to push it to the next level. And how do we simplify our environment, and how do we simplify our tool set completely? And that's gone incredibly well for us. We just went through that cycle this summer. Similar things to what we heard from Avery, but we're down now. And originally, we did not try to drive Microsoft out. We don't have an EA with them. We're running old versions of their software. But again, we would be faced, if we were going to run that, with a big upgrade. And we chose not to do that. So when we just came out of the cycle, and I'll get the numbers mostly right, the Word is down below 10%, still the environment. There could be some attorneys that still have it for some Redline and some other stuff, and some historical documents. PowerPoint is lower than that, and we still have a bit of Excel, largely for macro and other drivers. But those tools are getting better, and the team's done a really nice job of identifying the use cases, using the guides in the environment to identify what is it that we need to change in order to totally consolidate onto this platform. And the interactions and the partnership with Google has been really good in all that. And the team honestly gets pretty juiced when they see the use cases that they're pushing deployed in the product.
That's what I was going to ask. Have they seen specific features and use cases that they've put out there as implemented?
Yeah, and it's just, they love it, right? It's like, wow, we're actually, they listen, and we're driving these changes. And, more importantly, it just creates a nice positive vibe in our environment, because people know that it's coming. And one of our thoughts, as someone said earlier, was we want this constant stream of innovation. We want to get ourselves operating on a different cycle. Becomes increasingly important to us now as our products become connected, and the way we develop apps becomes connected and different. And this has really just helped us culturally transform to a much quicker cycle time, clock speed internally. So it's been good in that way.
That's great. And Manish, I think an interesting perspective, being a customer since 2009, so seeing the way that the collaboration with our product teams has evolved, and what this program has done to hopefully.
And we've always had a great relationship and partnership with the product teams, and Last Mile just took it to the next level, and our partner is Maven Wave, so they've done a great job as well. And I would say, we're probably about halfway through. I would say some of this is hard stuff. You've got 30 years of ways of working and technology out there, and trying to change people and practices is hard. And I think part of what we're doing is helping to sort of blaze that trail, so hopefully others can follow. And my sense is it's probably going to take through the end of 2019 to get to that end of that road. And we've made a lot of good progress. We are seeing that positive feedback in terms of new feature functions, as well as new products coming out. So the good news is we're on the right path. We've got some good momentum behind us, and look forward to completing this journey.
Great. So question for each of you. You all sat through the keynotes this morning and heard Prabhakar talk about G Suite and what's coming with the future of G Suite. And I'd love to hear from each of you what you're most excited about from what you saw this morning and just in general with G Suite in the cloud.
I think on the G Suite side, there's just a lot going on. And I think part of our challenge, frankly, is just keeping up with Google. There's just so many things coming at us, and I think we've got to continue to evolve how we communicate with our employees to let them know about new features and functions, and I see video as an important part of that. But no, we're excited with all of the new developments that are coming out. I don't have any particular favorites that Prabhakar, there's all good stuff there, so look forward to seeing that. I do want to comment on one of the things we've seen since we moved. Way back when we first moved, we did a lot of due diligence on security. And back then, cloud was seen as less secure, so we ended up spending a lot of time working on that and taking our executives and board through why clouds made sense. And I think the argument today has flipped, where I think with everything going on in security, on-prem is becoming less and less secure, and legacy environments and legacy technologies are getting weaponized by the hackers out there. So being in the cloud is actually more secure. So.
Great. Mike or Bhupesh?
All right. What did I like this morning? I will say what caught my attention, I mean, we've been kind of seeing the AI in the email response, right? But I think there's one very interesting new thing I saw, which was the type ahead feature in completing documents. That was brilliant. That was going to make us very productive. Like the whole learning on what you'll be typing based on the role you have, if it goes that deep, think about the speed of completing your work products. Maybe we may be able to go home early sometime.
That sounds nice.
For us, I think it's really beyond just a suite, right? So IoT drives us into conversations with you guys that I just think are very helpful to us in a number of ways. A lot of the machine learning stuff you're doing is interesting to us in a number of ways. We'd like to see more capabilities in Meet as that can expand to larger crowds. We just do more and more video all the time, and find that really helps us support our engineering team that's developing and designing these products really across 6 or 7 design centers around the world, and the ability to bring them together really helps us. We deploy some Jamboards that help us with that as well, and as all these tools just continue to integrate, it makes getting work done easier. My personal story for me, my wife had a total knee replacement surgery, so I got to be caretaker for about 6 weeks, which is, if you're my wife, that's a really scary thought, but she had a physical therapy session one morning, and it's right in the middle of my staff meeting. And I started on my personal PC in a Hangout in the staff meeting. I switched to my phone, drove her to physical therapy, fired up my iPad, got back into it in video, got off it, back on the phone to drive her back home, and then I completed back in my office. And they could see me switch mediums, but I never dropped out of that meeting. And it was just that easy. And so when, the kind of work that people do these days, and when work gets done, it's all kinds of different times. So anything that you can do to continue to integrate that and bring it together and just connect it with a click, it's pretty special, actually.
Yeah, I think it really is. I mean, we talk about productivity across G Suite, and it becomes across a lot of different mediums within that allows you to use all the different tools to just be more productive and efficient, as you talked about. Maybe not even necessary if we'll type for you. Yeah. Manish, you looked like you had a comment there.
I just wanted to add to what Mike said, and I think most of us realize that if we look at the traditional desktop environment, laptop environment, it's changing, and my view is that it's going to continue to change and accelerate over the next 3 to 5 years, and so whether you're on Google or something else, it's going to change. And the reality, and on top of that, the way we work is changing. And so I think I'm very comfortable that we're on an evolutionary path to that revolutionary change. And the reality is, for those who resist that change, at some point there's going to be a forcing function or a step function change where they're going to have to change. And I think an evolutionary model is always better than a revolutionary change. So, you know, that's one piece of advice if anybody's sitting on the fence.